What's up everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to show you all how to make a French baguette at home. I'm going to take this bread that is typically seen to be as a harder type of bread to make at home and make it as simplified as possible. That way you all can experience this nice bread with a crusty exterior and nice chewy inside. With that being said, let's dive into this recipe. Alright, so for making a French baguette, you really only need a few ingredients: flour, water, yeast, and a little bit of salt. So let's start off with our flour. I highly recommend bread flour because it's going to make the shaping process much easier, but you could use all-purpose. So first we need to make a Poolish, which is a pre-ferment for this bread. For this, you only have to combine 150 grams of water and 150 grams of your flour, stir that together a little bit, and then we have to add in a small bit of yeast, like literally a pinch of yeast. So you're going to drop that in and then stir everything together, wrap this up with some plastic wrap, and we're going to let this sit overnight to ripen on our counter. As you can see, the next day has arrived and our Poolish is nice and ripened, and this is going to make our bread soft, fragrant, and aromatic and provide a little bit more flavor. So now I'm adding 240 grams of warm water to my stand mixer as well as all of that Poolish, and then I'm just grabbing a large spoon and kind of mixing this together to help it dissolve a little bit. Now for dramatic effect, add in 400 grams of bread flour in slow motion into your stand mixer. Then attach the dough hook attachment, and by the way, you can make this bread by hand, and we're just going to put that on the mix setting until it kind of combines those ingredients together. Now we're going to cover this up with a damp towel to have an auto-lees for 20 minutes. This is going to activate enzymes and it is going to make our dough much easier to shape later on. So after 20 minutes, I'm adding in 2 grams of active dry yeast, letting that mix on the low setting for about 1 minute. Then I'm adding in 10 grams of salt, and I'm going to mix this together for 2 minutes on medium speed. Then increase your speed to medium high for roughly 2 more minutes until this clings the side of the bowl, and then we are going to cover this with plastic wrap and let it sit for 30 minutes. After this 30 minutes is up, we are going to remove this plastic wrap and do what is called a strength building fold. So I'm taking my hand, stretching the dough out pretty far and then folding it over itself, rotating the bowl and repeating that process until you do this about 6 times total. This is going to develop some strength in this dough, which is much needed. Cover this with plastic wrap once more, and then we're going to let this sit for a total of 2 hours to proof. Alright, so I named my dough Chuck, and Chuck has been proofing for 2 hours now. As you can see, when we remove Chuck's plastic wrap, you can tell that it has gassed up a lot and it has a lot of these nice air bubbles in it. From here, I'm going to lightly flour my work surface, and then I'm just going to take Chuck and dump him out onto the countertop. Next, I'm going to divide Chuck into 4 equal sized pieces. You can weigh this out to be precise, but it's not really needed. Now I'm going to take my dough ball and a dough scraper and kind of just use this motion here to essentially create 4 dough balls. Cover them up for 20 minutes and let them proof. After that 20 minutes is up, I'm removing the towel, taking one of my dough balls, lightly dusting the top, flipping it over, and then degassing it, and we're trying to get this into a rectangular shape. Now to shape a baguette, it's fairly simple. All you do is kind of roll it down towards you, tuck that under the seam a little bit, roll it towards you, tuck it, roll it towards you, tuck it, and then you can kind of just roll it a little bit to close that seam. And then I'm using my hands here to kind of fan this out, and because of the auto-lees, this is going to be fairly easy to shape. So as you can see, I'm applying pressure on my fingertips and kind of fanning it out to my thumbs, and as you get closer to the edge and as this reaches about 12 inches in length, you can kind of create these little points that you see on baguettes sometimes. So after all of these are done, we are going to make what is called a couche. And essentially with baguette making, this is typically a very thin cloth, but I only have a towel, so I'm just flouring this towel, and it actually worked very well for this recipe. So to do this, you want to provide stability, so I'm folding up one side, kind of pinching it, and then pinching it together. So you're essentially creating walls for these baguettes, but leaving enough room for them to kind of proof up. So this is going to prevent them from falling down and kind of getting flat. So after you have all of them nice and tucked in, we're going to let those sit for 45 minutes to proof. In the meantime, grab a pizza stone if you have one and load some parchment paper on top of it to measure it out. Remove that parchment paper and then preheat your stone in the oven on the highest setting. Mine goes to 500. Once that stone has preheated, I'm removing it out of the oven, lowering my temperature to 485, setting my parchment paper on, and then carefully transferring my baguettes over to this stone. Be careful here and be gentle with your dough. I like to use a cardboard square to help me transfer these over, and I can only fit 2 at a time, which is probably going to be the case for you as well. Now we can score our dough using an X-Acto knife in my case by making 4 or 3 long diagonal cuts all the way down the loaf, and you could also use a lame, which is essentially a bread X-Acto knife. Now I'm covering these baguettes for the first 10 minutes of the cook time, cooking them once again at 480 degrees Fahrenheit. This is going to trap steam and help the cooking process. After the first 10 minutes is up, I'm quickly removing this dome off my baguettes and letting them cook for an additional 10 minutes. Once your bread is done, you can set it on a wire rack and smell the aroma of fresh baked bread all throughout your house. This bread has a nice crackery crust and nice fluffy inside. I'll let it speak for itself. You heard? Alright everybody, the baguettes are complete. Look at this thing. You hear that? Nice and hollow. Alright, let's give this a taste test. That's insane. Alright, I'm putting that in one of the top 3 things that I've made on this channel thus far. It's got a nice crispy exterior, but the inside is nice and fluffy and it's got a nice chew to it. Definitely one of the best things I've ever cooked myself. You guys absolutely have to try this. It's worth the effort. This is one of the best breads that I've had in my entire life. It really is amazing how only a few ingredients can come together to make something like this, and it also has this much flavor going on into it and this texture. It's absolutely mind-boggling to me, but fresh out of the oven, this is uncomparable to store-bought bread. I want each and every one of you to make this just so you can have the experience that I'm having right now. Alright everybody, that is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please drop a like on it and consider subscribing, because I cook and bake good food here every single week and I want you to be a part of this community. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below and I will see you all on the next one.